It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 426. Tonight I'm joined by Mo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
We're no strangers to love.
Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
You know the rules, and so do I.
Tam.
Hey, oh my god.
And Thalen.
Nope.
I unironically like Rick Astley. I do. Like, I remember when that song was on the radio. I thought it was a perfectly reasonable song. I don't know why it became the thing, but...
Neither does Rick Astley.
Like, and he's like the coolest guy about it ever.
There was more than one song that got this treatment at first, and then only one.
Right, that one was the one. And it stuck around.
What were some of the other ones?
Rick Astley has multiple hit songs. Some people nowadays think he's a one-hit wonder. He was not a one-hit wonder.
No, he was very popular.
Together Forever is another very, very popular one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember Rickrolling happening about the same time as Fresh Princing someone.
They're very related, yes.
Yeah.
One was a visual joke. One was usually a forum joke.
I appreciate that the current iteration of this is you got coconut mauled.
I don't even know.
It just says you just got coconut mauled, and then plays the music from Coconut Mall Mario Kart track.
I am not with it, apparently.
Oh man,
I might finally not be terminally online enough
oh
to
man,
know what's going on.
No, I can't be the only one terminally online.
I mean, I am significantly less terminally online since I moved over to Mastodon.
I think that's part of it. Is like no Twitter. So
yeah.
That's the thing. This is not a Twitter thing.
Okay.
Because I do miss Gail Simone.
Yep.
It's like the main good thing on Twitter.
No, you just follow too many speedrunners.
I do follow too many speedrunners. That's fair.
That would do it. I don't know.
So,
I'm looking forward to a few years from now when my son knows all of the memes, and I'm just like, okay.
No, I'm not looking. That's already starting to happen.
like,
It's starting a little here too. He says things are
What-
sus, and it's hilarious.
what cracks me up, though, is like if you think about those early memes, it's a miracle that they broadcast as well as they did, given that YouTube didn't exist or any other video sharing platform.
No, it was all
Like it was
images and text.
E-Bomb's world.
Oh God.
I mean, yeah.
Like- like-
Rickroll started basically when YouTube did.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a meme that predates YouTube. That's a
Okay.
meme that relies
I
on
mean-
YouTube.
I mean, it's predated by duck rolling.
It is, which makes even less sense.
It really does.
Did it really start with YouTube, or was it originally like a Flash animation?
I'm pretty sure Rick Rolling started with YouTube.
'Cause,
I
like-
could be wrong.
There's a lot of stuff that was pre-YouTube Flash animations.
This
Well,
is
so
true.
the whole point of Rickrolling, I'm pretty sure it did start with YouTube, because the point was you could link to a YouTube video and people would not recognize that it was
Right.
a
Yes.
Rickroll, and people would, oh yeah, I want to click on this YouTube link, because obviously what you've linked to purports to be a YouTube link, and I see youtube.com and I don't know what these numbers and letters after it means, and I see I'm watching a video of Rick Astley now.
Yeah.
How droll.
Guffaw.
It's a little chuckle.
So I did a dumb thing today. I became a Catmander.
Yay.
What's a Catmander?
I need to do that.
So in Guild Wars 2, you can't lead groups larger than 5 people
10 people.
without a commander tag of some sort. And you have two options. Like, you have the traditional commander tag that's 300 gold, or you can go do some nonsense and get one that has a cat on it.
Wait,
And it's
cost you
also
300
300 gold.
Mm-hmm.
isn't there like an Apple that lets you do that though?
That's Mentor Tag.
Mentor Tag,
and
no.
It doesn't have any of the bennies. It's
Oh, okay.
It's a way to make
It
yourself
does let you lead
visible
people
on the
around
map.
on maps.
That's really
Yeah.
cool.
But
The
it doesn't have
commander
any
tag-
sort of like group making benefits attached to it.
Oh,
Yeah,
got it.
the commander tag lets you form groups of up to 40 people, I think.
I think it's 50.
Maybe 50.
I thought it was 50.
I think it's 50
yeah.
actually. And move people between subgroups and so that they, so that buffs are in the right places, and like mark people as certain things in World v World. Various
Also,
stuff
people
like that.
can, when you take group to public, people can just join your group by clicking
Right.
you on the map.
I thank you for your service. Like, I always thought the people who did this were absolute
So
nonsense.
They are.
here's the problem is if you try and build groups out of the group finder to do things like strikes, they don't really function very well without a commander tag. Also, if a commander joins your group, they could just take your group over.
Yep, they're in charge now.
So I
didn't know
figured
that.
like it was useful to have.
Yeah, the whole group merging mechanic and all of that there's weirdness there.
Yeah. Like I was watching a bit of a thing with Teapot one day, and he had joined a strike group, and he was trying to make a strike group happen on his 0 to hero character where he started from scratch. And someone rolled in, took over his group, and said, "Now this is a raid group."
Mm-hmm.
And that just happens. Like, but anyway, so
You
like
can make groups large enough to join a strike without being a commander, just for the record. But, yeah, it's.
well,
I didn't realize that was a thing.
The problem is in the party finder, it will tell you this party has no commander. And for whatever reason, like, it doesn't matter that much for strikes, but also people won't join strikes unless there's a commander.
Yeah, people want that tag to be there.
So it's like it's a cost of you must be this tall to ride this ride, and it kind of sucks because like 300 gold is a lot of money. But I did the dumb thing and got a Catmander tag, which means you have
objectively cooler version of the commander tag.
It is.
Yes.
It is the much better version, but it also means I had to do a dumb jumping puzzle in World versus World.
Yes.
I mean, like, all of this is super cool, and as I said, like, if I was more like into this game and like willing to put in the work, I would probably find being commander cool, but like, seems like a lot of work, and I don't think I have that time to actually learn how the mechanics work to like shepherd around everyone. But I really appreciate people who do that.
Oh, me too. Like I have only tagged up when there was an absolute absence of one.
So when are we going to start raiding, Bell?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I want to do strikes. Like I literally want to do strikes. They're fun.
Those two.
That kind of is the previous step.
So are strikes more than just dragon response missions?
Oh,
no,
yes.
strikes are a primal.
Although those are strikes, technically.
Okay, maybe this is why I have a bad taste in my mouth for strikes.
Yeah, strikes
Those are way less bad when you aren't doing 10 of them in a row.
Well, exactly. Like I
That's
did a
fair.
couple the other day, and I'm like, these are actually kind of fun when I'm not doing 15 in a row.
Okay, fair.
Strikes tend to be a lot like Final Fantasy 14.
Yep. Primals.
Primals.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Like they're a boss usually, and or multiple bosses, and like I had to do Kining Overlook the other day to get my turtle, and it was basically like the final boss of the Ministry of Security.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically you're fighting a team. You're fighting a SWAT team is what you're doing.
Yeah. And luckily, like, it was using markers that were familiar enough to me from other games that I understood what a, like, everybody get in and soak this mechanic looks like. And I have numbers on my head, and 2 other people have numbers on their heads. So probably we should get out of the party. So yeah, like, it was fine. But anyway, I had been contemplating doing this thing, and I did it. And I now want to do the jumping puzzle again and bring the correct food so that I can have the Catmander in my home instance.
Doesn't that food require like a gift of battle?
One of them does, yeah. The Catmander I got was Gift of Battle. The other one, the yellow one, is like some chili that
Yeah, I
you
think
have
he just
to
wants
get.
a can of chili.
Yeah, but like the blue Catmander only cares for battle. And it's hilarious because like you go into this little cave and there's the Catmander and then there's all these cats that are like working on training dummies
Wow.
that are
wonderful.
battling.
I did not know that detail. I just knew that the thing you had to feed it was a gift of battle.
Yeah, it's
Freaking
gift of battle.
battle.
Yeah, sadly I don't have my first one that I farmed up, so I'll have to farm up another one.
I mean,
It's
eventually,
not bad.
you do enough world v world, you got Gift of Battle coming out your ears.
Right, like it's not that hard of a grind to get a gift of battle.
It's fair. Like, and especially, I mean, you could be doing other things with that reward track progress.
That's true.
Yeah,
It's still much less silly than what the fancy fractal cat wants.
Yes, that's nonsense.
I think Ash at this point, I think I've completed 20 some different tracks.
I can believe that.
So it's not a big deal. Like I can get another gift of battle. It's no big deal. Anyway, I don't know if I will ever be one of the people that goes from zone to zone shepherding people around the world, but I do love me some world bosses.
The other thing is, like, while Dragon Stand usually seems to have a primary commander, it feels like there are frequently some secondary commanders that are not that necessary. You just need someone to be a commander of that lane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I tagged up today in Dragon's End just because there were two other commanders that were tagged up at the escort spots. So there wasn't one in my lane, so I went ahead and tagged up just so it's nice and easy to see. But like prior to them showing the NPCs on the map, commanders I think would be like really important for like Triple Trouble or something like that, so that like you had 3 groups running through that event.
Well, and also the presence of a commander tag is a signal to people that yes, people are doing the event here.
Right, exactly. Yes. I mean, like think about it. Anytime you've got the daily for events, what do? You pop into a zone and look for some form of tag and then fly towards it or run towards it or whatever.
Yeah, I've been the apple for those things because that's an easy one. I have that already.
My preference of choice is already purple. I want to be the purple cat. Anyway.
Congrats on being a Catmander.
Yeah. It just meant I spent 300 gold and did a jumping puzzle. It's not that important, but yeah. Kodra, Axiom Verge? Had you not played this?
I had not. I had played maybe a little bit, but I had not beaten it. But now I have.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's it feels very Metroid. It's one of those things where like I am trying to formulate my thoughts on Metroidvanias and like what do I look for in a Metroidvania, like, and why does Hollow Knight always stick out so much? And I think one of the things I did enjoy with this one is like once you finally get like your full kit of movement, there's a lot of cool stuff you're able to do, like where
the big thing I remember with that game is the ability to switch places with a robot.
Yeah, when you're able to like shoot a robot up into the air, deploy it early, move around, and then teleport yourself to the robot and like do a midair dash. That felt pretty cool. That's like extremely late game though. And I think I actually sat down and was like, I wonder what advanced tech does this game have that I'm not aware of, and like what does a speedrun of this game look like? And other than one pretty major glitch, a speedrun of that game just looks like a very optimized playthrough of that game.
That makes a lot of sense.
It doesn't seem like there's a lot, like there's not a lot hiding underneath the hood of that game. But I did have fun with it. It was an interesting game. I don't know if I'll go play Axiom Verge 2. I don't know if anyone has recommendations around that one. I've heard it's not as good as Axiom Verge 1, but
I don't think it's as movement focused. It's a lot more boss fight focused.
Yeah, the boss fights of Axiom Verge 1 didn't feel too great, especially the last one, which felt like I am in this space and I'm not sure how I'm supposed to not be taking damage. it feels like I'm just sort of DPS racing this boss to kill it before it kills me.
I know in the second game, they made like a lot of really elaborate bosses, but also made it so that you don't have to fight any of them if you don't want to.
Interesting. But yeah, I don't know. It was my first time playing it. I'm still looking for other good, fun feeling Metroidvanias, but I had enough fun with this one, and the story was pretty interesting.
Out of curiosity, how recently have you played Super Metroid?
It's been a while.
I mean, it plays well on the Switch app.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, the Switch app?
Yeah, the Nintendo Online
It's on
app.
the SNES on Nintendo Online.
Oh, is it on SNES?
Mhm.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I should check that out.
They also just added Metroid Fusion to the Game Boy Advance one.
Yes, they did.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Didn't realize that.
I think maybe Metroid is actually, getting a little bit of attention.
Yeah, Metroid Prime Remastered
The-
also came out.
The Metroid
Yes.
Prime Remastered is really freaking good.
I'm very excited about that one. I loved Metroid Prime,
Yeah, Metroid Prime was fantastic.
It was really good.
but
So I think we talked a little bit about this last week, but Mass Builder.
yeah, so folks were recommending it to me as somebody, like a game for somebody who wants to tinker and be a gearhead, and I understand why you say that, because it definitely looks like that. The thing is that all of the tinkering and like building your perfect mech is all cosmetic focused.
I thought those had mechanical benefits.
They do not.
Ouch.
Boo.
So it turned out to be a little bit lighter than what I was looking for. It feels pretty decent. Like you feel like you're playing a Gundam, but
Then I still think Armored Core is probably a game for you when it eventually comes out, pending it's anything like the previous ones.
I also have no idea what Daemon X Machina is like.
I've played it a little bit. I didn't love it. It didn't seem really detailed.
I started playing it, but then didn't continue playing it. Which
Yeah, that's kind of where I am with it didn't really hold my attention, but also I don't remember it having much in the way of mechanics to swap stuff out. I think there's some basic gear, but it wasn't like parts or anything.
The only gear I remember is weapon choices.
Yeah, I think that's what I remember too.
In a similar vein, I have finally been bad enough at MechWarrior Online for long enough that I'm starting to get good at MechWarrior Online.
Oh,
or at
nice.
least functional.
Is that good at MechWarrior Online or better match made at MechWarrior Online?
I'm not actually sure. Could be 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I'm not.
Fair.
Can't really tell you. But I'm actually going into the mech lab and swapping out parts and making tactical decisions about what I want my mech to do from a actually thought out standpoint, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, with Mass Builder, it's not even do each component not do anything, but your frame has 3 weapons. You have a sword, you have a energy gun, and you have a ballistic gun, and they are always the same no matter what you do. You always have those 3 weapons.
I could have sworn that was different.
That's not what you have.
Because I feel like I remember having to pick between a one-hander and a two-hander when I played that game last.
That's entirely possible, and it would probably be all cosmetic.
You made me revisit this game because I thought it had more than that.
Yeah, so
It
what
does-
you're really looking at is this is a body, it has X number of mount points. I can put whatever I want in those mount points, pending I have enough power generation to support it.
Sure, yeah, that's the kind of stuff. We played MechWarrior 5 with the what was it? The Mech Lab?
Yeah, then yet another mech lab.
Yet another Mech Lab mod pack. And basically I feel like it could have been a little bit more than what it was. It was basically each chassis was a tonnage, and that tonnage had you had available weapon slots.
It had tonnage and weapon mounts.
It had tonnage and weapon mounts and jump jet mounts. But then you had
Speaking of,
a
they
s-
finally fixed that multiplayer bug.
oh
I
sweet.
know, I'm so
It's about
excited.
time.
But you had the ability to slot in whatever amount you wanted as long as you remained under the tonnage. Mass Builder, I will say, does have something else, but it's they have a talent tree, and you slot in talents, and those define yourself. Like you can be in an assault corps or a boost corps, and then you can pick some additional like things that give you other modifiers. And so you pick stuff from a talent tree.
Yeah, so MechWarrior Online is basically the yet another Mech Lab mod of MechWarrior 5, plus about 5 times as many available mechs.
Yeah.
Plus, as you use a mech, you get XP for that mech, which has a talent tree.
I definitely understand. It's like, boy, everything about the customization of MechWarrior Online makes me wish I could have it in MechWarrior 5.
Yes,
MechWarrior Online is multiple years older and has had correspondingly more development than MechWarrior 5.
I do understand why people are annoyed at MechWarrior 5, because in theory you could have just ported that system. Like, obviously I know you can't just port systems like that, but like
I was gonna say you are a game developer, you know that one.
But at least
That's
as a design
the design's done.
baseline, yeah. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like that's the kind of people who like to play MechWarrior like to fiddle around with their mechs. And MechWarrior 5 without that mod just doesn't let you do that, and it's very strange.
What's the current state of mods in that game anyway? I know the first DLC
Up to date.
Fair enough. The first DLC resulted in them not keeping stuff up quite.
Yeah.
Yet another
it's been a while.
Mech Lab, at least on Steam, which I assume is propagated elsewhere. But yet another Mech Lab was updated like 3.10, like yesterday. Sorry, Friday.
I would absolutely play that. Yeah, 3.10, Mario Day. Happy Mario Day, everyone.
Yay, happy Mario Day.
They also added Melee to that game.
Wait,
I thought they didn't add Melee, which was why it was so weird that they put Hatchet Men in, but then you couldn't actually like hatchet a person.
I thought they added Melee.
I mean, maybe they finally did, because enough people were like, Hatchet Man. Like, what?
It's in the name.
The man has a hatchet.
And he shoots you with it.
Yeah, the Call to Arms, I'm pretty sure Call to Arms added Melee.
I mean, it says it did. Ooh, and some new biomes.
So, I'll continue.
Yes, I would like a Highlander with a big sword.
All right, I will jump back in and play this yet another Mech Lab again and get really excited. Have they fixed other things, like can co-op players actually like see the store and make requests?
I don't know.
I mean, it looks like a whole bunch of stuff got overhauled, so
Maybe.
Could be. Ooh. Deploy lances that exceed the tonnage limit at the cost of sea bills.
Oh, nice. That was the other thing I wish, is that there was more lower tonnage, or there was more reason to send in low tonnage, because I like low tonnage mechs.
Oh,
but that game did have tonnage limits, which did eventually, like, it meant that I could let everyone else run around with their 100-tonners, and I could be in my 45-ton Phoenix Hawk.
What a lie that was.
This is also a thing that should have been pulled from MechWarrior Online. MechWarrior Online has very, very good reasons to play every size of mech, and it may actually be better now that they fixed the jump jets thing.
Yeah, that does make a big difference.
Because like
light
mechs are so good at spotting.
It also makes catapults significantly more attractive.
I already thought catapults were attractive. Wait, I'm supposed to use LRMs on those things?
No, that was funny. Like, that was awesome. Just load up your catapult with SRMs. That's not what they were designed for, but they do a great job of it.
They do such a good job at that.
You just need to not get hit.
So we kind of previewed this last week, but on Thursday, Path of Exile, Last Epoch released its multiplayer patch, and that game was hugged to death.
Sure was.
So, like, I feel like
face.
I feel like it's important to add some scale to this conversation. That prior to last Thursday, the highest number of concurrent players Last Epoch had ever had was just barely over 5,000 players. their highest
not a large
concurrence.
studio, not a very big game.
Yeah, their highest concurrency this weekend has been just shy of 40,000 players. It seems like multiplayer is really important to most people when it comes to playing ARPGs in a Diablo style play, and a lot of people have been waiting in the wings for this drop, ourselves included. So yeah, they have been dealing with their server infrastructure, but for the most part now seems to be okay. But it was hilarious on Thursday.
It was hilarious yesterday also.
I was going to say, yesterday I tried to log in, got a queue, it went down 0 and sat at 0 for long enough that I stopped trying.
Yeah.
I mean, I got in a queue. It went like through some suspicious numbers, got to 0, and then went back up to like 1,000 and something.
Right. And like mine kept going back to 1303, that for whatever reason seemed to be a significant number to it.
Mine was 1202. Who knows? It kept going back to it. It seemed to like it.
It's a happy number.
Yeah.
But Thursday, at least Belle and I got into the game for a little bit, and it was, it was laggy. It was a little buggy, but it's the sort of laggy, buggy that is mostly silly and mostly not game breaking. So it was a good time.
Well, so like it is server authoritative. Like it is server authoritative, which means there were some disagreements that were being had between my client and Grace's client and the server. It allowed me to basically charge through walls at several points.
Well,
tonight, however, I would say it's pretty good. Like there's occasional weirdness with movement abilities still, but like the actual play is pretty solid.
And could log in with 0Q.
Yes, that.
Yeah, late last night, they apparently released a patch that removed their queue entirely. So whatever they were doing with the queue was causing the problem.
Oh boy, queues.
It does make you wonder what the queue was for, but
so like
they could just get rid of it.
Like, to be fair, they had to essentially rewrite the way a lot of the back end of the game worked to support multiplayer. And it's pretty impressive, like, now that it's working. If you're interested in playing it, maybe give it a week or so just to make sure everything stabilizes.
I mean, it seems mostly fine right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you have ever played,
any game
on
near
opening
launch,
weekend,
yeah, it's less laggy than D3 is for me most season starts.
Like, I think where it is tonight has been pretty reasonable, and let's not forget, this game is really fun.
Yeah, no, it's extremely good. I felt real bad for the team because, like, I had popped in pretty late on Thursday night before I ultimately went to bed, and their de facto community manager was actively answering questions in global chat, and I got up Friday morning about 5:30 and eventually logged in maybe around 6, and their de facto community manager was still in chat answering questions. So I'm sure everyone on that team had some very, very, very long nights. Maybe still are. Hopefully they've gotten some sleep.
I mean, this person was still in chat when I was playing earlier today, although it seems to be done now.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, I think this is a great start. It's kind of basic multiplayer. There's no guilds. There's nothing like that. The trade system is pretty straightforward. Just if something drops while you are playing with someone, you can trade it over to them, and that is fine. I am really interested in their trade system release whenever that goes in. They're expecting it to be about 2 patches away. But like, they may have nailed the, like we talked about this last week, but they may have nailed like the whether or not trade or not even SSF, but like non-trade is going to be the way to go, and have come up with a decent compromise, or at least it sounds like a decent compromise.
Yeah, I'm really excited about seeing how that works in practice.
My takeaway from this has mostly been that they, after an amount of time, because this was not true when we tried it originally, have pretty much nailed the whole game feel thing.
Yep. And especially with this release, they've replaced a bunch of assets that they had bought early on just to get started, and now actually are putting in some art direction for some of those things. Like the bone golem specifically was kind of sketchy looking. It was just some chunks of armor floating in the air with bone on it. And now the bone golem is this really cool bone construct that moves like a gorilla.
I love the new bone golem so much.
It's so good. It's so good.
Has a head with like 5 skulls on it. It's just perfect.
Yeah, it is the most necromantic thing you would ever want. But yeah, like I've played a lot of classes since Thursday.
I got one of everything up to around level 17 because that's where Belle and I left off on Thursday night. I was like, well, I don't know what I feel like playing in multiplayer, so I'll just get one of everything to that point, and then I can figure it out later.
But I was originally going to go Necromancer, but I ended up going Paladin instead, and that seems to be what I've coalesced on.
I mean, I think it also says something about how fun this game is that I have leveled one of everything, even the melee classes, and it was fun.
Define melee class.
I mean, look, like Paladins, that's a melee thing. You're swinging a weapon around.
I mean, I just started a Sentinel, and mine is not melee at all.
Fair.
Hammer throw is my primary attack there.
I'm actually playing mine as melee, so
fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, mine is a very tanky melee, and unlike Path of Exile, playing melee is not the wrong choice.
Yeah, that.
Like, I don't know that I would play a melee rogue because I really like building rogue into a bow character, but
I mean, I'm probably going to try that one.
They do have a Blade Vortex kind of thing going on with rogue.
It looks fun, but also if there's a bow, I'm going to use a bow.
Like, I am so looking forward to the release of the Falconer class.
Yes.
Because I want a bow pet character. But that is apparently a long ways out. Like, none of that has been, like, that is just a concept at this point. Nothing exists in reality, according to one of the last live streams.
I'm a little sad about it, but also just the straight up bow is fun, so I'm okay with it. Plus, if I want pets, there are multiple other classes that I can play that have pets.
Including one of the Sentinel variants. I didn't realize that. Like, Forge Guard can just make a copy of the armor you're currently wearing that follows you around.
Yep, they basically have Animate Guardian. Except
you don't lose it when it dies.
Right. Path of Exile, you mess. Like that's one thing that I really enjoy about this game is that it is perfectly reasonable to just sit down and build something. Like, there is very clear synergy between abilities. Like, if you just read the tooltips.
It's not that difficult to read through, like, the things in this class and go, maybe these things work together. And you try them, and maybe they don't work together that great, and then you can pick a different something that works together.
Like, on the Sentinel, I am following a loose build, but, like, when I was playing the Rogue, like, I was just, like, I noticed, okay, Explosive Shot, or whatever it's called, has a thing where its Ignite scales off poison, and I also like lobbing a bottle of poison around, so I will just work on the synergy of those two things. Also, you can spec poison to be fire damage if you really want to.
So what you're telling me is there's a Mad Bomber class.
I don't know. I don't know how much you can really rely on it as a main ability, but like, yeah, absolutely. There's a
Don't kill my dreams, Belle.
like there probably is a spec where you would like play the Mad Bomber. There's also decoys that you can drop that will taunt things, kind of like the decoy from the Hunter in WoW, except for it actually works this time.
I actually found a unique ring that she has a chance to drop those when you're hit. It's hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, the unique design is really good. Like, there's a lot of interesting things going on with it. There's a new unique that I really want on my Necromancer that scales your bone golems based on the number of your skeletons. And if you spec it right, you can have 4 full-size bone golems. And that just sounds like the best possible option.
Yeah, I am definitely on the lookout for that thing. I don't think it drops until a little bit later, but
yeah, I think it's like a monolith drop.
But I just appreciate that. Like, I started playing this game and I just started messing around with things, and it was easy to change my mind, play with stuff, and like, oh hey, I ended up with a build that when I went to look up starter builds for when the patch dropped, it was pretty close to what one of the streamers was already using and recommending. It's like, it made sense because the synergies were very clear and obvious, and it just felt nice to be able to do that and not have to just stare at a build guide constantly.
Yeah.
I mean, like, a lot of the things you can shift all of your abilities to a specific element so that you can get clear synergy between those elements. And it may be different elements per class, but there is a thing there where you can like shift everything to lightning or shift everything to fire and then stack fire bonus multipliers and such.
Yeah, a lot of the Void Knight stuff for Sentinel wants you to shift all damage to void damage.
And that's perfectly reasonable. Like, it's easy to do. Like, there's a clear path. It's the void damage path.
Including one of their passives actually converts Smite to void damage. Because Smite doesn't look like it has conversion, but one of the Void Knight passives gives it conversion.
And a lot of things that you would see in other games are in the passive tree. Like, Primalist by default can't dual wield, but there's a passive to do that.
I don't think anyone can by default, but yeah, there are several passives to let you do it. Maybe the Rogue can?
I think the Rogue can maybe by default. No, I think it's also passive. Dual wielding Primalist was fun. Like, I want to build a version of what I was playing around with.
I was going two-hander on Primalist because I like big axes on that character. There's a particular combination of big weapons and attack speed that works really, really well in mini games like this.
There's a weird build that I've seen people playing with where you go werebear and you stack as much crit as you can, and you use this belt that throws a fireball every time you crit. So you're running around as a werebear, dropping fireballs on everything.
Little surprising. There's a bunch of stuff that lets you make either like vines or lightning just randomly in that ability set already.
Yeah. I know there's one that was popular in the last version where you're a werebear and every time you maul a totem, it ends up casting a big nuke. So that you're just dropping totems and then swiping the totems, and the totems are blowing everything up.
Interesting.
The one that like I did see that I want to try at some point is the bee queen or wasp queen that looks like it's
the other shapeshift in Druid. Well, one of the other shapeshifts.
Yeah, it's you're basically like running around as a giant whirlwind barbarian is what it looks like, but
a bug.
But you're a bug, and you're casting a swarm, and the swarm is attacking everything and swirling around you.
Yeah, that one has a lot of bonuses that scale with locusts, which are a pet you can summon associated with that form.
Yep.
And I think you can eat them for extra bonuses or stuff like that.
Yep.
Looks weird.
Yep. It just looks cool because, like, I've watched gameplay of it, and it looks like a whirlwind barb. Because you're just spinning all over the place, and your swarm of locusts are killing everything. You're just periodically resummoning more.
I really want a version of Primalist that uses the squirrel summoning item. Like, I just want to run around with an army of squirrels, murder all my enemies. Sounds so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked on Army of Wolves. That's what I'm working on right now, but
the Army of Wolves is really freaking strong, because like that's what I was playing, was basically a dual wielding character with just a pack of wolves following me around.
Summon wolves summons wolves up to your companion limit.
Yup.
That's a reasonable thing to do. Totally. Never mind that there are melee attacks that can make your wolves also do extra things.
Well, and I think you can kind of just specialize in any of the different animals that you can summon. So, like, you can go hard into raptors or go hard into wolves.
There are also some things that give you bonuses for having exactly one pet. Like, they limit you to one pet and then make that pet crazy good.
Right. The super tanky pet. Like, there's a lot of meat on these bones at this point. Like, it was a good solo game, but now it's going to be kind of an interesting multiplayer game. I am looking forward to getting up to monoliths and beyond and seeing how some of that stuff works. Like, I mean, I did it solo, but I would like to see it with a group because I think it'll be fun.
Also,
so Kodra,
yes.
Having just gone in and unlocked Acid Flask, you could totally make this the center of a build.
Okay.
Either the poison or fire variants.
I like the idea of a fire bomber.
Yeah, they're explosive and don't drop puddles on the ground when they're fire.
I do want to see what the dungeons in this game look like. Also, something that I don't know that any of us had tried. And it seems like it could be a fun thing to do multiplayer.
Yeah. And I think there's like an arena type thing as well that I didn't get into either. That I think is how far you can get in a wave type scenario. I wish the team all the luck, because like this has to be kind of a life-changing thing, because like they had never been on the top 100 sales chart for Steam, and then Friday morning they were number 8 out of 100.
I mean, again, I remember talking to these people at PAX.
The thing that gives me hope is that they were previously real set in their ways as to their decision-making process. and they have been several times on a lot of things. Trade is one of them. Like, they weren't going to do trade at all. And then they went to the drawing board and came up with this system that like seems like maybe it is the best compromise I've seen, on paper at least. So yeah, like in theory, they have been humbled by their success and the reaction to various things. So we'll see. Like, if they can continue to roll with the punches, it should be good. So this next topic kind of feeds off of this topic, but also into another one, is servers dying on major updates.
Oh boy.
Cough.
Because, yeah. Possibly you are in a chat about Last Epoch or about any other games with major releases. And like, it's so funny to me because it's the same old song and dance. Like, why weren't they prepared? Why didn't they pay more money for more servers? And like, suddenly everyone is an armchair networking expert, and it's like, oh, you could just have cloud. You could have a cloud setup that's scalable.
That is, in fact, what Amazon's marketing tells you.
Cough. Cough.
Same with Microsoft and GCE. All of their marketing tells you that cloud resources are perfectly burstable. You'll never have to worry about overusage ever again.
Yep, that is totally what all of the marketing says.
That is not true.
You run into ever actually trying to implement anything in real life, ever.
And it goes back. It goes back to online games forever.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, since online games have existed. Some of us know because we're old and we were there.
Well, I mean, we've even seen this recently with like the increase in usage of Mastodon and the fact that most servers just can't scale that big.
honestly, it's like, well, didn't you plan on some growth? Yes, but planning on 100x growth versus 1000x growth.
Right. I mean, like the numbers I gave just today for Last Epoch was, the maximum they had ever was 5,000 players.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're bumping up 30 to 40,000 players. Like,
that's 8x growth.
Yeah, that's a lot. Like, that's a big deal.
And realistically,
was a similar percentage, although the quantity was much, much larger.
Well, and it's a much more reasonable thing to scale from 100 users to 1,000 users than it is from 100,000 users to 1 million users.
I mean, that's again the difference between 90,000 users and 900,000 users being added.
I'm sure it'll be fine. Nothing will ever go wrong.
Scale is hard.
And also,
not worth paying for.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Could you predict and prepare for 100 or 1,000x growth? Yeah, sure. And then if you didn't get that, you would have burned a bunch of money for no reason. And also Brownie in motion is a thing. The digital equivalent of Brownie in motion is everybody is logging on at time, whatever the time of the patch is, to get on and try it for the first probably 24 to 36 hours, and everything is slammed because it's only going to be slammed for 24 to 36 hours.
Right. And if you knee-jerk react to that demand, you end up with the Amazon New World problem.
New World.
Yeah, where they spawned all these servers that they didn't need and have had to have a constant reduction in servers and server moves and part of it is I feel like MMO players or traditional MMO players have some on the ground experience in how these things just go, and it's part of life. And maybe there's players that aren't used to it at all that overreact when they can't log in at exactly the moment they wanted to.
Yeah, and honestly, people being mad for 24 hours is not worth millions. Avoiding people being mad for 24 hours is not worth millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about. Millions of dollars. Do you want to spend them so that some people aren't mad for an evening? And sometimes the answer, sometimes you look at how long are people going to be mad, and you're like, you know what? We got to do something about this. Final Fantasy XIV learned this question. They learned this answer. They're like, oh, wow, this isn't a flash in a pan. This is weeks of insufficient data center.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do something about that.
Yeah, these numbers aren't going back down.
Yeah.
This is our new normal.
And that's the magic problem that everybody wants. WoW had that. You couldn't reliably log into World of Warcraft in 2004 for months.
Right. And if you did, the servers weren't playable. I remember the loot lag.
Mm-hmm.
The loot lag still existed as a thing when I started playing in 2007.
Yeah.
Well, I remember there were a lot of times that I left things just rotting on the ground because I didn't already have a stack of this thing in my inventory.
Yep.
It is not worth me looting it.
You turned on auto loot because you're like, you know what? I don't have the time. But yeah, and it's this people get really mad and they're like, what are these, incompetent devs doing? You should have seen this coming. And it's yeah, people saw that coming and they made a decision that wasn't what you want. And they're going to make the same decision tomorrow too. The next time this happens, the same decisions are going to get made.
Well, and the problem is sometimes there's just things you can't plan for. You don't know what exactly the spike's going to be. You know there's going to be one. You just don't know how big it's going to be.
Yeah, and if you could even remotely closely predict how many players you were going to get, buddy, I got news for how much money you could make as a consultant everywhere. Because you have no idea.
And again, the problem isn't necessarily scaling. The problem is the scope of the amount of scaling you would need to do. like, sure, all these armchair, admins think that they can just throw resources at the problem, but like, there is a cap in the amount of resources that you could realistically get.
Yeah. And like, that's a lot less true than it used to be. Like, once upon a time, it was like, yeah, we're just going to stop selling this game because we can't get more servers. Because like, once upon a time, you wanted a server, you were signing a 5-year contract.
Yeah, that's not true anymore.
And that's not true anymore.
Well, but like, even at that, you still sign commitments based on specific usage. That way you can get your numbers down and your costs down by guaranteeing that you will pay X amount for this server for this period of time. But like, we just went through this with a Mastodon server that, like, one of the ones that I was on starting last year was mstn.social, and it was a great server, but the admin reached a point where he couldn't scale it anymore, and it shot up to 120,000 active users. And like, the way that server was originally provisioned, it could not have any more processing power. It could not have any more storage. Like, so he had to spawn off several other instances to try and soak up the demand. So even in a realm of you can get as many servers as you want, there's still some parameters around them.
Anyway, at the end of the day, the same Ultima Online and EverQuest adages are still true now.
Yep.
Don't try to play on patch day.
Right, yeah. Don't take time off, at least.
Don't take the day off to play on patch day. Don't do this.
No.
Even when I took the day off for the release of Strawberry Jam, it took me like an hour to download that because everyone was downloading it from the Game Banana servers. And that's like a very niche game for a niche sub-community of a pretty niche game. I was getting like 40 kilobytes per second.
Yeesh.
It does have over 8 hours of custom music tracks, which you can check out on Bandcamp. This ends the unpaid advertising for Strawberry Jam.
I was going to say, wait, you got paid?
No.
I mean, I feel like we do a lot of unpaid advertising for things.
Yeah.
Sometimes we like things.
When we like a thing, we talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's things we like, so.
Also, the track Going for a Walk to Take My Mind Off of Things has been on loop for me.
So did we ever actually get around to talking about the Star Citizen release?
No, on the topic of just absolutely slammed patches. So I think the last time I talked at length about Star Citizen might have been about this time last year.
I mean, that's about when their last major patch was, right?
Right. Because of that. Because at about this time last year, the Star Citizen devs said, okay, this next patch is a doozy. We are going to work on it until it's done. Rather than a 2 or 3 releases this year, we're probably not going to have any more. We're going to release a bunch of new playable content and then probably nothing else for the rest of the year because their new patch is a doozy. And it's a doozy because they're doing 2 things that are both... So they're updating their renderer.
Ooh.
Yeah. Just everything that controls graphics in the game is getting an update. They're moving to Vulkan.
Probably a good call.
But yeah, definitely.
And that's the small thing. The other thing they're doing is what they're calling persistent entity streaming. Star Citizen really, 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 really likes physicalized things. Maybe pathologically. And for most of the game's lifespan to this point, it has felt like a hugely unnecessary obsession. Because it's like, okay, yes, sure. The components exist in my ship. I could take them and leave them on the floor, I guess. But why? Why do I care? Why does any of this matter? It's because of what they want to. I can pay attention to where my ship is spawned and track it for some reason rather than just, claiming it and bringing it back to wherever it is I'm at. So this is because what they want to do with persistent entity streaming is all of those objects persist in the world even when you're not online.
It seems like madness.
It is absolutely madness. So putting aside the fact that the Star Citizen servers have been completely hugged to death, I have gotten a chance to play on this, both on the test servers and on live. And there's a couple of other things that they've added. They've added salvaging, which is mining with different graphics, basically. But what do you salvage? You salvage abandoned ships and derelicts and stuff. Where do those come from? They also introduced what they call soft death. For a very long time, the game has had this idea that, like, hey, we want this game loop where maybe you get into a fight over a planet and get shot down and crash on the planet, and then you make your way across the planet's surface to an outpost to get some stuff to repair your ship with and take it back and get yourself off the ground again. And mostly that's not really been a thing that's existed. Like, it's a cute idea, but isn't there. This is like the second big piece of that. Your ship does not explode when it runs out of HP anymore. Now what happens is it gets disabled and shut down. You can repair parts of it. Depending on how badly it's damaged and in what ways, you can even get it flying again.
That sounds like a very large change.
It is a huge change. And this is true of all ships, including enemy ships that I shoot down. So, like, if I'm bounty hunting, for the most part, I get credit when I've disabled their ship. I don't actually need to, like, blow them up or anything.
So would it be beneficial for a bounty hunter and a salvager to work together?
Oh yeah, because you just blow up some ships and then you got scrap just right there. And there's a bunch of people who are like, oh hey, I know where bounty missions often happen. I'm gonna go take my salvage ship out there.
So it's the equivalent of hanging out in a field full of wolves on a patch day and harvesting all the leather.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's really funny because I've flown around and I've gotten to play for a few hours on live, and it's, first of all, it's real busy. But like I go to a place where like bounties frequently happen, and depending on how busy it is, it's like a scrapyard of crashed ships that I'm adding to by shooting down some more of them. But like, every so often, I see somebody in a salvager ship just chilling. I show up, I shoot some stuff down, they power on, come up over the hill, and get to work. And I'm like, cool. I don't need, like, I wasn't going to take anything from that. Like, I'm not in a salvaging ship. I'm in a ship that shoots down other ships. It's really, really neat to see. And it's helped by a couple of things. The new renderer noticeably improves my performance. Like, my performance was fairly good in a game that is
unoptimized.
Yes, unoptimized. My performance is flatly good all the time now. And I've heard other people comment that like they have less powerful rigs than I do, and they're like, wow, the game runs really well.
How's it run on the Steam Deck?
I have not tried it. But also, perhaps more importantly, it's running better on the server side. So a lot of things like hit registration and ship AI and so forth is more responsive and like behaves less weirdly. So like I can go do bunker missions and they work. I can go do there's all kinds of just weird little things that are super functional now. And like, it's a new patch, there's problems. I sort of stopped because enough people were able to, they fixed the login authentication issues, which were, you'd sit in queue and then, much like Final Fantasy, get booted out at the end of the queue, which is pain. But now that they fixed that, the servers are absolutely slammed and like are buckling under the strain of probably more people than have ever played this game before. But there's a bunch of really interesting stuff that's going on. Like I got shot down because I pushed myself too far and got in over my head. I didn't die. My ship like my ship hit the ground and I managed to survive. And I was like, all right, well, cool. I'm here. Aforementioned, salvaging ship, some dude in a salvager rolling around, was like, saw me and was like, ooh, bad luck. Hey, this ship over here went down because of hull damage. I think all the components are still fine. Do you want some basically repair gel to patch it up, and then you could fly it? Because I can't harvest these things while the ships that shot you down are still circling up there. So I fixed up a ship and took off in it, shot down those other ships, and everybody's happy. It was like you get to see it. There's like the ecosystem that all of these pieces have been promising for so long are like starting to come together. And it's really, really cool to start to see that. And then at the same time, they've released the dumbest ship I've seen in a long time.
Oh no.
They released an incredibly cool ship in the Scorpius, which is an
Is
X-Wing.
that like the X-Wing? Yeah, okay.
It's an X-Wing with a Y-wing turret on it. It's a 2-player ship. It's an X-Wing, and it's got a absolutely ridiculous turret mounted on it that the second person controls. And the ship is a terror. So they released a variant of it, which has a thing that jams your jump drive and an EMP, which, okay, sure, that sounds like it could be fun. Except they got rid of the turret, and those two things are controlled by the co-pilot. So you have one person flying the ship and shooting the guns, and you have one other person with 2 buttons that they get to press sometimes.
This feels not well thought out.
I don't know who that's for. I have
like as a 1-player ship, maybe.
Well, but if you only have 1 player in it, you can't use the EMP or the jammer. They're only,
like I said, that seems not well thought out.
Yeah, that feels like they should have made that the 1-person variant.
Yeah, it's just every so often there's a ship that gets released that I'm like, who do you think this is for?
Did they ever touch those up?
But my operating theory is actually that is an NPC ship. That is a ship designed for NPCs to fly. It is not really a design for players to fly. But because you can physically, you could shoot out the pilots of another ship and take their ship, NPCs or otherwise. They need to make sure that it works for players. Every ship has to work for players. So even though players are not really ever meant to fly it, sure, whatever. You want that ship? Be our guest, I guess. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with that one. But it is really interesting. They're planning. They have their next major numbered patch is like in May. So it's interesting to see that they're like 2 months. They're basically targeting 2 months out for their next major patch. But this one has been big, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it changes the way the game plays, because it's so close to this really, really interesting emergent sort of gameplay. I mean, it's already got that. It's just not, the pieces aren't all there for it to be impressive. And it's interesting that in this year, where they didn't actually release very much, the player base has swelled. There are a lot of people playing this game.
I mean, it's the only major crowdfunded MMO project that has something resembling a game in it. So, yeah. There is that.
It sounds like it's dangerously close to being Star Wars, where like so many of the ships of canon that the rebels or the smugglers use are ships that were not designed for what they're doing with them, repurposed.
Yeah.
And if you can go find an NPC and take their ship and then repurpose it into something useful for other purposes, that's really interesting.
The other thing that they have added, the other big thing that they've added is racing. Like
actually supported?
Like actually supported. There's a bunch of tracks. There are missions that pay you money based on your performance on the track. They are also an excellent place if you have a salvaging ship to hang out.
I saw what the player base was doing for racing before, so that makes sense to me.
They have upped the difficulty on some of those tracks quite a bit. But also, if you're not trying to make world records, you can get paid pretty well as a racer, which is kind of awesome. Even without doing some of the unbelievably dangerous stunts that I see some people in videos do, like you can get decent times. And it's another game loop that's really a lot of fun. Especially the other piece of it that I think is very funny is 2 of the best racing ships don't have jump drives.
Oh.
So
they have to get towed.
So you got to figure out how you're going to get them to places.
I mean, there are carrier ships.
There are carrier ships, and there are ships with cargo bays.
I mean, yes, there is. Yes.
So there's definitely
I thought there were some severe downsides to trying to put a ship in a cargo bay.
Well, their cargo refactor start has also gone in. So now ships can register that there are things in the cargo bay and that they're secured or not. And yeah, people are like, okay, here's how we get our racing ship to the places we need to go. And one person's like, okay, technically this ship doesn't fit in the cargo grid, so it counts as unsecured, which is bad because if it bounces around in there, it can blow up and take you with it. But if you stack a bunch of boxes on the cargo grid and secure it down that way by weighting it down, it doesn't bounce around.
Well,
so we go and we buy a whole bunch of trash because it's the cheapest cargo. It's the cheapest, heaviest cargo.
Literal garbage.
Because cities will pay you to haul their trash away.
Sure.
And weigh their little racer ship down with boxes of trash in this rattle trap cargo hauler so they can get to the racetrack. And in a just narratively delightful thing in this video I was watching where they were doing this, as they pull up to the racetrack, there's somebody else with an 890 jump, which is the cruise liner spaceship, that is using that to move its racing ships around. Their racing ships around. And it's the same racing ship. The actual racer is the same ship, but one of them is coming out of basically a garbage scow, and the other one is coming out of a cruise ship. I'm like, oh god, we gotta beat this guy. But it is, for a game that I fully expected to be like many of the other video game Kickstarters and vanish with my money inside of a year, it has been a fascinating ride over the last 10. The downside to all of this is that it is a new dawn of piracy.
Uh-oh.
Because cargo is physicalized. Cargo is a thing. You could take cargo. So if you're hauling cargo and somebody disables your ship, they could cut the doors open and take your cargo. I mean, they need somewhere to put it, but that's a thing that can happen now.
I mean, that sounds like what you want, I don't know, maybe a team of pirates working from some sort of, command and control ship that can then dispatch some sort of cargo hauler after they've disabled their target.
That sure is the idea. This has been paired with some different tuning on crime.
How so?
Which I mostly think is all good, actually. So previously, if you committed a crime, you got a crime stat, and having a crime stat made you kill on sight to basically all civilized places. Which, okay, but unfortunately meant that if you did something like accidentally winged a guard in a firefight, or bumped a cop in your ship, you were basically getting blown up and going to prison rather than being like, whoa, sorry, that was a mistake. So now it's only higher severity crimes, like actually killing a person or a friendly NPC or whatever, that will get you to that status. And otherwise you have a fine you have to pay off.
What if you accidentally run a ship into a space station and you have a friend on board?
That now does not... They are the bit where your friend can or cannot press charges does not default to yes anymore.
Okay. But they can still press charges.
Yes, they could still choose to press charges, somebody in your party defaults to not pressing charges now, versus if somebody's not in your party, it defaults to pressing charges. But the other piece of this is that they also made now, because it is now much more difficult to go to prison for like minor offenses, the kinds of things that you might do by accident in the course of playing like a normal person. The difficulties in if you do end up in prison are majorly increased. It used to be that like
you can't just hack away your crime stat anymore.
The what?
You can't just hack away your crime stat anymore.
Oh, you can, but you aren't. You're not going to an abandoned security facility anymore. Now it is heavily guarded, and there's a ton of incentive for other players to be around. So if you're going to try to hack your crime stat away, you gotta really mean it. And the common prison tactic of run and do one of the like easy, like trivially easy missions that just requires that you run a while and then suicide, respawn at the top and leave is now no longer a functional tactic, which is making people who commit enough crimes to go to prison quite upset.
Maybe don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
Yep. So it's going to be interesting. I still have a lot of skepticism about
this whole system in the first place.
Yes, the whole PvP and crime systems.
I mean, historically, justice systems in MMOs have not worked. So.
Nope, that is true. And it's going to be really interesting to see where they end up landing at the end, because now there are enough players, enough of the time, where the problems that arise from this are more apparent. And I'm glad because it forces them to deal with it.
And I think on that note, we have probably run out of time. Any final thoughts anybody has?
Play games that are fun.
Yep.
Yes.
And if a game is about to launch, maybe have a backup waiting in the wings that you want to play instead.
Yep.
Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Never gonna give you up.